Tertulia.
Tertulia. Good afternoon, you all. Today is Sunday, 31st of July, entry 2009, 4 pages, 4 theologies and 10 maxima. The topic is option for self-deintrusion. The subfield is volitionology. Who wrote this entry is the greatest veteran entry writer, Professor Adriana, who's here, and she's got the assistance of Mario. Now, definition. The option for self-deintrusion is the decision of the lucid intraphysical consciousness on taking a position, dominating, facing, breaking, overcoming, going against intra and extra-physical intrusive pressure, this being the first step to boost the sanitizing actions of his own psychosphere, which encourage the mental clarity necessary to determine the self and hetero-deintruding actions. Now, we're going to see in volitionology that there are several Thoughts, which is the effort to dominate the self-thoughtinity, the strategies to preserve the clean personal holothucine, the removal of thoughtsenic trash, the rigorous self-discipline against thoughtsenic offenses, the decision not to follow the crowd in a sick xenothoughtinity, the unwinding of the self-thoughtinity, the loading of the thought in one's thoughtinity, the self-awareness concerning the benefits of the intrusion, the comprehension of losses concerning ephemeral pseudo-gains with self-corruptions, the choice for paying the hallucinogenic prices for the intrusion, the end of quests for extra-consciential solutions. I read just a bit. Now, the act of working on the energies till the complete de-assimilation, the unconditional exteriorization of energies in order to master the intruders. In argumentology, there is a topic with 6 mistakes with problems concerning the self-convictions, able to block the proactive movement of the intrusion. And then in therapeutic college, there are 3 investments enabling the intraphysical consciousness to the de-intruding actions, and self-tests encouraging the option for the intrusion. In referentiology, there are 10 entries, out of which we point out self-deintrusion, lucid epicenter consciousness, the mega level of self-awareness, option for correctness, and pre-intrusion freeness. Emphatic sentence. The option for self-deintrusion is the most correct, intelligent, laborious, cosmoethical, bold, intersubstantial, and priority choice for being the one to catalyze everyone's evolution. Questions. Do you, reader, consider the conquest of the self-intrusion freeness in this life feasible? In a scale from 1 to 5, what's the level of self-efforts to reach such goal? Now, questions here for you, Adriana. In Factology, page 8, the decision of not renouncing the control of your own feelings. Could you talk about your theories in this topic? This is the lack of problems, of disturbance. If I had 100% of practice in this, I would be an intrusion-free. But what is this? You are not going to let other people, other contexts, facts to disturb you, so you are passing this decision on to someone else. So the secret of the intrusion freeness, of this lack of disturbance, is not to be disturbed by external things. This is the idea of this entry, this very specific part. Now in binomiology, page 9, the intelligent theories of the attachment, detachment, to deal with your daily life. Could you elaborate on this topic, pointing out the difference in both, and also making a comparison with the concepts of Buddhism? Well, the detachment we want to point out here is the intelligent. That's why we write the binomial, attachment, detachment. So I can't say, no, I'm going to live under the bridge, I don't want to know about money, about anybody else. So we should have some necessary attachment because it's an opportunity to live, but with limitations. So this is the discernment which is going to decide what I am going to do. So what we wanted to call the attention to here is that most of the self-intrusions has to do with other people. So you're not dealing with maturity concerning your belongings, for example, money, your property, for example. This large consciousness can deal properly with this binomial because he knows when he's going to donate and when he's not going to donate. Another interesting thing is jealousy, for example. There are people who think that they belong to other people, not the partner, but the friendships, for example. Oh, my friend can't be somebody else's friend because I don't like John Doe, for example. So the person can't deal with freedom, for example, in this case. People have the right to think what they want and do what they want, and we have to respect that, and it's very interesting. And the intrusion main topic here is that sometimes we want to control other people, so it's a pathological attachment. I have just read a book of Ian Stevenson, and what caught my attention was that in some cases the interval between the soma and rhizoma is very short, 2 to 3 months. I would like to know if it is possible. Desomating 1 or 2, 3 months, resomating again. Yes, I have already seen that, but there are lots of things that we still have to research. For example, the person resomating 2, 3 months after dying, but see, the person wasn't born again, but there are 9 months of gestation, for example. We have to take that into account. The process, for example, the woman that has 3 abortions in a row, so it happens, and we have to understand the difference between one abortion and the other. Another thing, and we haven't come to conclusions concerning my test, which I think is the most important, to find a person who has the same fingerprints of his past life. Now for you, argumentology, page 11, there are 2. The realist thinking, there is the question, which action can do to check, to ascertain the truth of this idea? Could you talk about your theories concerning this topic, which is associated to the principle of disbelief, and how the entry writer interpreted the phenomenon in order to discard the idea of being a self-suggestion? Here we're not considering parapsychical phenomena only, but for example, the experience is what is going to give you the tranquility to judge, to discern what's real, what's not. For example, lucid projection. There are some projections I have already had with a very high level of lucidity that it's impossible to deny. No, it's not a projection. And there are some others that are semi-conscious, for example. And then we are not sure, so we're going to write down to check, to ascertain the level of truth. Likewise with parapsychism, there are phenomena that are self-persuasive, and you have no doubts whatsoever. It's like here in the intraphysical life. You are experiencing that, so it will depend on your level of lucidity. What's the most important thing here is to write down, and with the course of time, we're going to see what's going to happen. Now, concerning the realistic Thousine, the idea is that one of the situations we have put here as self-deintrusion is the wrong reasoning. For example, the person creates fictions concerning reality, and the person has fixed ideas, mono ideas. For example, persecution, somebody dislikes him, several, lots of them that could happen. So this, if you start training, the idea is not to have that. If you deintrude yourself, and then you will be reasoning even more with the course of time according to the facts and power facts, not suppositions. But if the person, what's the idea here? First we talk about the idea, the reasoning based on facts and power facts, which enables one to identify the fantasies, and this constructs the lack of inner coherence. So, for example, when we talk about this, the person hasn't reached this level, so we are drawing a strategy to reach this level. So, before a self-intruding idea, for example, you have had this weird idea. So, this idea, is this based on reality? So, you're going to see if it has some foundations. Is it real? You have to look for the signs. Is it within a frame of evolutionary logic? So these are attempts to break this. So let's suppose it's a matter of guilt, for example. You did something that was wrong. It could be right or not. How are you going to know that? You are going to check and you're going to see, yes, I made a mistake and I am going to see. And I will be able to see that situation. For example, we write in the cycle, the mistake, the rectification, and the getting it right. So, but let's suppose that there is no guilt whatsoever, it's just a fantasy of your own. With this reasoning, you are going to construct this fiction. So when we talk about what you can do here in order to ascertain the truth of this idea, is this. Of course, it varies ad infinitum, but you have to see how you can check this. For example, you can wonder, and you can even ask the person. You can ask the person, did I go wrong concerning this specific point? And then you can check that out. So the idea of this thinking is this. You are going to deconstruct the fantasy, which in this case would be the self-intrusion. I would like to thank Mauricio Fernandes from Curitiba, who sent me a book, The Fraud of Global Warming. The topic is very polemic, controversial. There are lots of things to elaborate on that. Of course, it's difficult to say that everything it says is right, because in the US there are places with 54 degrees Celsius of warming, so it's very difficult. We have to check that out. I'm going to read this book calmly. Another thing I would like to thank here our friend Fábio Ferrari, who got me a book, Mansueto Bernardi, which is organized by Elvo Clemente. I haven't read this book. I'm going to read this calmly too. Thank you very much. Okay, very interesting. Now, I would like to talk to you about when we finish the tertulia here. I am going to Discernimento, because this afternoon there will be the ending of this winter festival. Now, this afternoon it will finish at 3 p.m. There will be a dance, Arabic dance. My wife is going to take part in it, Graça, with Aline, who is the greatest dancer in all this area in the Paraná state. It's the first time she's going to come here. She's Graça's teacher. She is extraordinary in such a way that the second winter festival, the program is great. So at 3 p.m. it will get started. I will be there. It's worthwhile. Another thing, it is the fair. I would like them to bring the banner here. It's the International Book Fair. It will be launched on the 4th of July in the Praça do Mitre, the Mitre Square, downtown Foz do Iguaçu, with the mayor, Paulo MacDonald, at the inauguration. There are several of our authors who are going to participate. You can see here several book writers will be there. There are several people, and we have lots of our authors that are Norma, Professor Norma, there is Julieta Mendonça, there is Moacir with Rose, there is Marcelo da Luz, all of them. There will be autograph sessions as well as their speeches. It's very worthwhile. It goes from the 4th to the 14th of August in the Mitre Square. That's the one where we were at the very beginning at the first book fair, that we were organizing the first book fair. So it will be in the same place. Now I would like to tell to Luis Suave, our friend, who sent me a letter, which is very interesting. It's very interesting what you said, but birds are very delicate. For example, if you have an empathy for an animal, you receive lots of energy, and sometimes the remission, the cure, the healing is instantaneous. I can never forget once I went to a professor's house. We didn't have too much intimacy, but when I got there, he was disturbed because his wife, when he got home, he said, all of our fish are dead in the fish bowl, and the fish were there. And when I got there, I exercised energies, and then in moments all the fish were swimming again, and then he was exultant. Now, according to the situation, you can really recover the animals. So what happened here, what you describe here, it does happen, but deal with your energies with conviction. You can be sure that it will help. Now, something else, I would like to thank my friends, the Pomari team that sent me the fruits. I would like to thank, there is mirtilo, it's a specific fruit. There are several of them there. There is this bag full of mirtilos for natural juice. Very interesting. Now, at 23 hours, at 11 p.m., at the Sky, the channel Sky, they are going to show A Pele de Onagro, La Peau de Chagrin, the original title of the movie. It's the Balzac's process. It goes from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. They have already shown this. They will show again. I am talking about that because there are lots of people who would like to see that and who would like to come earlier at 7 p.m. in Discernimento. We're going to be showing the last romance, the last novel, Balzac's last novel, and there will be a debate right after. on the same day. That's why I am talking about this, because everything started yesterday. Graça saw it. Yes, Osmar called me, letting me know about that too. Now, here, self-intrusion, deintrusion. Among the several applicable actions, which is the priority one? The first is the entry. The option for the self-intrusion. The idea was that one. This entry is important to say that this is the sun, the beginning of this, the first entry, the anti-victimology. And we wanted to see with that one why people practiced self-intrusion. So it's based not only on my experience, but also on observation remarks. I had therapeutical sessions as a therapist and so on and so forth. So there are several situations we can see. And the first step was that the person has to want. So I wanted to write an entry, a short but efficient entry. The first step is to make a choice. It is not the best deal for your evolution, the self-intrusion. So this is my reasoning here. The first step is the option. Once you opt, once you choose, and then everything will come as a consequence. For example, here, as we wrote in the definition, it is breaking, facing, overcoming the intrusive pressure. So this is the first step. It's important to say that the fact of choosing doesn't mean that I am an intrusion-free. It's not as easy as that. Making the right choice is the first step. When you choose and then you are going to look for the others, it's the most difficult one, but then you are going to have a series of actions, several conscientiology concepts, and then we insert in the bibliography all the pages concerning intrusion, several things that we have to deal with in order to conquest self-intrusion. So the first thing is to choose, to want, to opt. How can we opt for the intrusion coming from our own volition? If to be immune, you have to be teleguided. Yes, they mixed everything here. Well, no, let's see. Teleguided is after intrusion freeness. The intrusion freeness is then when we are able to be immune. I don't know if that's what you want to talk about, but it doesn't mean that I am not going to be intruded. There is this paradox of the intruder, for example. There is this entry. So the paradox is exactly this one. You are going to have more contacts with sick consciousnesses, but it's not going to disturb you. This is the lack of disturbance I talked about at the very beginning. So the choice for this de-intrusion is just the first step. You have to work with your energies. You have to work with your cosmoethics. So it's a wide array of options. But if you don't choose that, you will never reach this. So the teleguidance will come after the intrusion freeness. And there is also the the condition of the semi-extra-physical consciousness, and then the teleguidance, because you will be this self-aware mini-cog in the multidimensional assistential maxi mechanism. So I think that you could read this teleguidance entry. Could you elaborate on codiology, the self-de-intrusion being an article of the Code of Personal Cosmoethics, the person who doesn't have that in the personal code of cosmoethics? What can the person do? Well, if the person doesn't have that, there is something strange, because it's basic in cosmoethics. to be deintruded is a cosmoethic act with yourself and also with the others, because when you let others to intrude yourself, you are being at least, you are incurring in connivance with others' sicknesses, and then you won't be able to be on the fast track to your intrusion freeness. So now what we want to call the attention to here, it is an article to be part of your personal code of cosmoethics. There is a sentence in the 700 experiments here, for example. This is in the 700 experience, chapter 44. Small cosmoethical mistakes open wide the doors to intrusion. So we have to take care of these small mistakes, to close the door, to shut the door close at the intruder's face. So it's the way to the cosmoethical incorruptibility. Can you elaborate on technology, the technique of the cosmoethical of the snobbish cosmoethics? Yes, because there is the banana technique entry, for example, that hasn't come here yet, but you have to respect other people's decisions. If they want to go to the rock and roll show, if they want to go there to be drinking all night long, they can of course do that, but if they invite me, I'm sorry, I'm not up to that, it doesn't interest me. But when we tell them, you have to study more, go to holotheca, it's a way also to be snobbish, but in a cosmoethical way, because what you are saying here, you need more studying. So there are ways to be snobbish, but in a cosmoethical way. For example, you can say you have to study more, you have to research more, so you are giving the direction. In factology, third line, bottom up, the private practice for self-intrusion. I would like you to elaborate on that. Of course, there are several of them, but I see that the praxis here, for example, because each one of us knows a little bit how we work. So, for example, let's suppose that the self-intrusion has already been installed, the things are weird, there is this weird pressure, so the person has to do something. I have seen lots of techniques, for example. There are people who start thinking in other languages. They start thinking in English, for example. This is a way to cut off the intrusion with the intruder if he's not an English-speaking intruder. But anyway, there are people who do that. There are people who like to do gardening, and the person will be there planting trees and they will be deintruded, right? There are others who go to the kitchen. It's not my cup of tea, but there are people, there are strategies. People will have to work out, or they will work on their vibrational state till they reach that condition. So each one has what they can do, their strategies, what facilitates. Because, for example, the person is already intruded, the thing is weird, and the person has to do something. What am I going to do? Am I going to be walking or whatever? So that's why we write private practices, because each person knows what to do when the things are looking bad. But now in culturology, rather in self-mistakology, number 3, the possible hetero healing. Yes, just to put it into context, here I try to focus on the experiences and so on. I enumerated 6 problems coming from the mistakology. There may be many others, but these are the ones that make people not choosing the self-intrusion, because they are at the basis of their wrong reasoning. But what we see is that there is this gap for the intrusion to come in. It's interesting to observe, at least I do that, if I still have some subtlety of these personal positions. For example, this possible hetero healing, the illusion of the existence of someone or something capable of getting rid, capable of solving all your problems. So the person is looking for something. For example, the butterfly hunter, the person looks for something, everything coming from mysticism, they go from doctor to doctor, they knock on every sect's doors. So the person is trying to look for something from the outside. Here we are not invalidating the hetero helping. Okay, there are sometimes you need people to help you out. So consciential therapy, conscienciometry, the conventional therapy, we're not talking about this. What we're talking about is that all the therapies need the person's movement so that the person will also allow himself to be healed. Otherwise, the person will only criticize the other, because the burden of healing is on the person himself. So that's what we wanted to call attention to here. So when you have this illusion, it's more difficult to admit, to experience the priority of self-healing. Then it will work out for the consciousness. So it's very common for the person. It's the person who always says that the other is responsible for the person's problem. The person will never finish the self-healing or the therapy. That's what I wanted to say.
But even traditional therapists say that the person itself should heal. Yeah, within therapy and psychoanalysis, you need to make the person build the demand. If there is no demand, there is no treatment. It's not a shock. It's within several therapies. The person must be committed to the therapy. Adriana, on page 8, volitionology, last line, the productive use of the Thocenic space. You, as an author of several entries and other activities, could you tell us about a technique to do so? Well, use your mind to think and about useful things. There is even a saying, I don't remember well, if your mind is lost, you end up with trouble. But we need to be busy in a good way, using work, reading, study, because people think many nonsense. We waste our time with what's not important, so let's use this space time with the maximum advantages of our evolutionary time. You're going to read, you're going to work, you're going to write an entry, you write a book, but do something. Write an article, study, talk to people. With this, you will think about helping people. So it's an infinite range of options. There is even an entry which is the agenda, the schedule of Thocenity. So let's say you are in the bank line, and you're just thinking about nothing. You need to have an agenda, you need to have a schedule for your thoughts. I would like you to talk about two issues. You have even detailed, but only with the concept. frustration, inference. Inference because of this lack of work with our minds. So a person can invent a dialogue with extra-physical consciousnesses, like some mind troubles. It's like a bomb in terms of not busy mind. And frustration as self-intrusion. Yeah, inference is what we talked about realistic thought in the beginning. One can make several inferences and they think that those are true and they don't check the reality. So what our concern here is to check the reality regarding this. Regarding frustration, in the other way, there is an example. The perfect conviviality generates lots of frustration. You wait for people to do things in a certain way and you get frustrated because you have created some expectations which are not realistic. If you had a reality in your thought, you would say that those people could or could not do what you were expecting. And regarding the perfect conviviality, people think there are soulmates, there are these legends. You find people and they are euphoric, they are your best friend ever, so we are compatible forever. On the first week trade, that person sees in you, it's all over. Yeah, there is even what they call angelic problems and demon problems. Yes, it's all a matter of frustration because there is an expectation which is based on fantasy, and it's impossible to be there a relationship without problems. We all need to adjust these circumstances. If you believe the fraternal conviviality is something built day to day, you will not have this kind of frustrations. And this myth of the perfect conviviality generates lack of affinities. If you can't be the best friend of that person, you can at least be polite with them. I see that parapsychical interferences are an issue regarding this subject. I don't know, maybe people find ideas within parapsychical circumstances. And that's what's the most problem. And in terms of frustration, the most basic one is the frustration regarding the Penta. And Waldo talks about the flames coming from our hands in the Penta practice manual, and people just see nothing and they feel ashamed during Penta practice because they have compared themselves to what Waldo says in the book, and this generates a lack of motivation, and it generates a line of self-intrusion due to this comparison, this wrong comparison. Yeah, but this is what you're talking about is related to my new entry. It's lack of merit notion. If you have this notion, you see that you have step-by-step way. If you don't have this notion, you think you will come to a great, an optimum level without effort, without the step-by-step. That's what you're talking about. That's important.
Adriana, no B aqui em cima, Betty.
Betty, up here. Infectology, third line. Could you elaborate on the choice for paying the price for the intrusion? What we are trying to say here starts from the self-awareness regarding the intrusion. So we're coming from the point that people want to be de-intruded. This is my argumentation here. Deep inside, they think they have something good with that intrusion. So they haven't reached the benefits of not being intruded. And people choose to pay this price. Being de-intruded is not easy. If it were that way, all of humankind would be like that. There is a price to be paid. There is a price of the emotional control, of energetic control, the control or mastery of our thoughts. You need to elaborate your sanity, even our bodies. How can we be intrusion-free? Being ill. So it's a series of circumstances we need to face, we need to go against to reach this de-intrusion. So that's what we're talking about. When you choose not to be intruded anymore, like you were fed up, it's enough. So you will start making efforts towards intrusion freeness. And there is a price, but if it were easy, there's a price.
Adriana. Oi.
Adriana, in interactionology, page 9, could you amplify the second item, the interaction, self-de-intrusion, presential strength? Yeah, when we talk about interaction, it means that things interact, but they are not absolute. And we see that self-intrusion improves your presential strength because your holocene becomes wider and it's even more pleasant to live with you. So people start having this empathy, spreading this empathy to everybody. That's what I'm talking about, and it's more positive. So in affectology, there is a relationship with the second item, isn't there? Yeah, that's perfect. The repercussion effects of the intimate conviviality, improving our interconviviality, because when you improve yourself, you improve your whole interrelationships, not only yourself. In theory, the theory of the group karmic interpretations. Why is it only theory if one has already a level of the intrusion? Why is this theory as a theory only? Once you have talked that the consciousness connected to this issue is already making the intrusion. Well, but when we put theory in theorology, we are not saying that this is not practical. We are just saying that this theory must be studied. Okay? So when we talk about the group karmic interpretation theory, it's not what I mean by, it's not that this is only theoretical. This theory is here because it's relevant. And one must study this. You will understand the group karma and the intrusion, and then we enter the other entry, which is the anti-victimology. And if you are aware of this holobiographical history, you will understand more your reality. Because the more we don't have retrocognitions or clearness, we know we are a result of our past, and other people also. So we start understanding, we are more able to forgive others because we don't know exactly what we have done in the past. So we give them a credit.
No final da página, quinta linha da fatologia, você podia
Adriana, in factology, could you elaborate on the decision of not not leaving the control of one's own feelings? Well, Luiz, I talk about
É porque ela está deixando que outras pessoas, situações,
not the disturbance.
Eles estão dizendo que como eu vou me sentir. Eu me
They are saying how I'm going to feel.
Se eu consigo,
if in intrusion freeness, I am able to keep my control, to master my emotions, even if the world is falling. That's what I'm talking about here. Question, could you talk about the volitionology and the strategies to preserve the clean personal holocene? The strategies to preserve clean personal holocene. And the removal of tholic trash is also related to this. There is an entry about this subject, okay? What's the name? Volitic trash, okay. Those thoughts that are not functional, and there's like a trash in your mind. They are going to dirty your holocene. For you to remain healthy, you need to remove this trash. The rigorous self-discipline against volitic offense is another subject. So let me have this sexual fantasy. Let me think ill of these people. People think they are not creating problems, but they are. There is even this saying: you cannot prevent the birds to come to your head, but you can prevent them to making a nest on your head. And there's also the decision to not follow the crowd in the sick vicinity. There are some strange thoughts that come to your mind. But if you know your pattern of thinking, you will know this is not yours, what's yours and what's not. When you make the sympathetic simulation, you will be able to know what's yours and what's not. So this is the line of thoughts that answer the question. Adriana, page 11. About critical self-cognition. When you talk about the possibility of discerning with exemption. Could you talk about closer examples? Analyzing others is easy, but when there is a relative closer to you and you weren't expecting some facts, how do you solve these problems? So let's follow this line, okay? There is self-cognition. We were talking about this. If you know yourself with self-critique, you know what are your reactions. You will be aware and you won't dramatize. So you know, this is my problem. If something happens to this, I will have problems. The best is not to come to this condition, but as we are not intrusion free, we come to this problem. So the question to be made is there intimate disturbance? Yes or not? Yes. So go to the next question. What's the level of self-control regarding the emotions? Do I have control or am I shaking? Is my cardiac chakra mad? Am I thinking in a confused way? If you're already this way, you will definitely see you are not going through this. You're not overcoming. You have to do something. You ask for excuse. You will start speaking very carefully because you know you're not in your best mood. You can go to the bathroom and you're working, your energy is there because things have already affected you. So in terms of emotion, if you're not able to overcome, avoid making decisions because you're already downhill. The best is not to reach this point. If you're not completely free of this. Yeah, but here you're asking yourself, you are going to tell if you're in level 1, 2, or 5, and you will decide due to these answers which decision to make. The best posture is to act or wait for a better moment. It's for you to decide. You are asking yourself, am I disturbed? Am I overcoming this? How am I going to do? So I'm going to shut up or not. I need to speak. So I need to speak very carefully. I will modulate my words. This is a technique for you to evaluate yourself. So these are tests for you to see your levels.
Tá? Obrigada. O professor tem ali para falar.
Adriana, aqui no ar.
Tá, pode falar. Sim, pode falar.
Okay.
Adriana, como a gente pode
Adriana,
ajudar,
how can we help
o outro?
Others?
Tem como a gente
Is there a way to help others? A friend, a relative, someone closer to make the self-intrusion or help somehow? Well, we can always help, but the most serious of this entry is to look at ourselves. We help more when we are able to make the intrusion because our help will be more effective without intruders' interference. So it's not a matter of not helping, but the most serious now is for you to choose for yourself. And people will see your example, your self-awareness. I am talking about my reasoning here in this entry, how I am thinking about this. When I write, I'm trying to help people think or even refute or even go against these ideas, but they will think about this. The best is for you to help people think because there is not hetero healing. They decide to help themselves, to heal themselves. I can take the intrusion out of their psychosphere, but if they don't change, the intruder will come back. The best way for you to help is for you to take the intruder out of their psychosphere. You pass the information, they will think better this way, but they will make the final decision.
O recado para você é o seguinte, quando você
Alzira,
fizer telas, vai lá e pega a gatinha.
when you
Já despedimos dela.
make the structure in your house, you can get the cat, okay?
Gostaria que você explicasse
I would
sobre a
like
glândula
you to
pineal,
explain
epífise.
about the
Tem pesquisa
pineal
da
gland.
ciência que fala seria o
There are
nosso contato com a
researches that
espiritualidade.
say
Você
it
poderia dar
is
uma
our
explicação
contact
sobre essa
with
glândula do nosso corpo, se existe
multidimensionality.
mesmo essa glândula? Olha,
Is there
a
such
glândula
gland?
existe. Todo mundo sabe.
Yes,
É tanto
the
que as
gland
células são chamadas
is
pinealócitas.
exists,
Agora,
and there
o
are the
problema
cells
é
which
que
are
não é
called
só esse
pinealocytes.
processo de
But
ser
it's not a
contato
problem
com
of
espiritualidade, tem
making
muito mais coisa
contact
nisso.
with
A
spirits.
cabeça é
It's
muito
much more.
complexa,
Our
não é só
head
isso
is
não.
more
Olha
complex.
bem o que é as
You should
energias
study
que tem
the
entre os dois hemisférios
energies
cerebrais. Isso às vezes é
between
mais
both
forte e mais
brain
sério do que a pineal.
hemispheres.
Agora, para você, na autoenganologia,
In self
convívio perfeito. Você
mistakology,
comenta
the
sobre a
perfect
ilusão da
perfect
filiação
conviviality.
interconsciencial absoluta, gerando
I would like you to
relacionamentos
talk
sem
about
atrito.
this.
Gostaria de saber qual o limite das
What is the
concessões
limit
dos
for the
relacionamentos a
concessions
dois,
within
evitando
a
conivência,
relationship between
acompliciamento
two
com
people,
assédio do outro.
avoiding
A esnobação
connivence.
cosmoética pode ocorrer nesse caso?
commitment?
Olha, aí a pessoa que ela tem que avaliar
Well,
isso aí,
you
né? O
should
limite do
evaluate your
acompliciamento,
limits.
tem até verbete que a gente
There
fala
is
isso,
even
né? Você
an entry
vai não
about
se
this. You're
acompliciar
not
com o erro
going
reiterado,
to
né? Então, se a pessoa ela não
to
quer mudar, ela
approve
está optando por
other
não mudar, e você que vai
people's
ter que avaliar. Isso é muito difícil, é muito
mistakes.
pessoal. Você vai ter que
And it's very
analisar aquele
personal.
caso
You need
que
to
tá nessa
analyze the
situação. E o
case
nível de relação
in
que
which
você
you
tem.
are
É seu
living.
marido, é teu filho
What's
ou é
the
o
level
vizinho?
of relationship?
Então, tudo
Is
isso tem
it your
diferença do
husband,
nível
your
de
son,
relação
or
que você tem com
neighbor?
essas pessoas.
It's the
Agora,
level
o
of
importante é ver,
relationship
se
is
você
different.
decidir por não, olha, vou me afastar
But if
dessa
you
pessoa,
decide
é você fazer
to
uma análise crítica
to
sincera. Eu
be
fiz tudo
apart,
possível.
to
Eu tentei
tear
ajudar
apart,
no máximo que eu pude.
you will make
Realmente
this
a pessoa não quer
analysis.
mudar mesmo.
Have
Então, a gente se
I
encontra
done
nas
what I
quebradas da
could?
evolução aí,
Have I
para
really
aprendendo com a
tried to
pessoa.
help?
Então, acho que por aí.
So
Professora
you
Adriana,
can live
quando a
and find
frustração
people when
advém
it
da
comes.
conclusão de que a outra
When
pessoa
frustration
está
comes
te
from the
vampirizando,
conclusion
o
of
melhor não seria se afastar?
people
Olha,
making
uma coisa que a gente...
being
Eu já
vampire,
dei esse exemplo,
wouldn't
né?
it be better
Existem
for
pessoas
us
mal
to
intencionadas, existe assediador, né? O mundo aí está cheio, as
to
consequências estão aí, né? Agora, a
break
questão
up
é,
with these
você
people?
que vai ter que ver o limite. Se a
Well,
pessoa pisa
again,
no seu pé
you
uma
will
vez,
need to see
tá
the
ok.
limits.
Agora, se você
If
deixar o
people
pé
come
para pisar
against
de novo,
you
já é um problema seu.
once,
Ou
okay,
aquela situação.
but if
Tem um
you
leão,
leave
eu não tenho
your
raiva do
foot,
leão,
for
mas eu não vou
example,
entrar na
for
jaula
people
do leão.
to
Então, são
step,
pequenas situações,
the
você
problem
tem que
is
ver como é que você vai
yours.
lidar com isso. Há situações que você vai
There are
ver, olha,
situations
como
in
eu
which
ajudar essa
you
pessoa, eu
will
posso
be able to
ensinar, eu
help
posso
people,
orientar
you
sobre
will teach,
energia,
will help
pagar um curso
how
para ela de
to work
energia,
with
para ela deixar de ser
energies, pay a
vampira, ela entender
course
melhor.
for
Não
them
tem
not to be
jeito, aí
vampire
você vai ter que tomar
anymore.
decisão como
If
da
there
outra
is
pergunta,
not
né?
any
A hora de
way,
se afastar.
you will
Agora, a
need to
questão
break
é
up.
você agir
But
profilaxamente,
you
não
need to
negar ajuda.
act
Você
in a
pode ajudar,
prophylaxis
mas
manner.
como que você
You
vai
need to
ajudar com
help.
precaução,
But
com
how to
profilaxia?
help
Você não
with
vai se permitir
prophylaxis? You
vitimizar
will
novamente.
not
Uma vez,
allow
tudo bem,
yourself
duas
to
já
be
é
victimized.
burrice da
Once, okay.
gente, né?
Twice, it's
Deixar a pessoa nos
stupidity.
assediar mais de uma vez.
Esta semana foi leiloado um vinho por 200
This week,
mil dólares. Essa é uma
a
garrafa
bottle of wine
Como a
was sold for
Conscienciologia trata
$2,000. How
E
does
os de
conscientiology
joias que
deal
chegam a
with
2
this?
milhões de dólares?
How about the
Isso
jewelry
pode ser
that come
considerado
to
egocentrismo?
$2 million?
Existe aqueles
Would it
que
be
estudam a lei de
egocentrism?
causa e efeito
Well, there are those people
e
who
acham
study
que
the
essas
cause and
pessoas
effect law,
estão
and they think these
abusando do
people
que têm.
are
Estão jogando fora as coisas.
wasting
Segundo
their money
eles,
with
a
these
maioria dessa
things.
turma
According
vem
to
pedir esmola na
them,
próxima vida.
in next
Eles vão
lives,
passar aperto
these
pelo
people
processo daquilo que eles
will
esbanjaram.
beg
Então a
for money.
perdonologia é o estudo do esbanjamento.
So the
Isso aí é um
lossology
caso seríssimo
is the
pra gente
study
pensar.
of
Tudo isso é
the
loucura.
wasting.
Agora, a loucura
It's
maior
all
é de
a
quem
madness.
paga.
But
Não é de quem
the
vende,
most
não.
crazy ones are
quem
those who
paga.
pay for
Por quê?
the
Se ninguém
prices,
pagasse,
pay
os
for
preços
this
iam cair.
product.
Nunca ia chegar nesse
If
preço.
there, if
Então,
people
tudo que
didn't
abusa
pay,
demais do valor,
there wouldn't be
a pessoa
such
vem
high
pedir esmola na
prices.
próxima, vai passar aperto na próxima vida.
And
Isso é
in
inevitável,
next
a lei de causa e
lives,
efeito.
there
O
will be
negócio vem ao
problems
revertério.
regarding money.
Quando as pessoas tomam atitudes
When
da virada
people
de ano
make
para mudar a sua vida,
decisions
outras tantas
in
que
the
sabendo
end of
claramente
the
o
year
risco de sobrepeso,
to change
tentam
their
modificar
lives
seus
and
hábitos,
try to lose weight,
mas
for
em função do
example,
reflexo
and change
condicionado
habits,
tão comum nessas pessoas
but
e no alta
due
série,
to
se
their
perdem no
habits,
processo.
they
diz que ele é de
lose
médio a longo prazo.
and say
Como evitar
that
essa perda do
this
caminho?
change is
Tipo
of medium
erva
and
daninha.
long
Parece que
term.
exterminamos, mas
How
uma lasquinha
to
sob o solo
how to
e mais
change
cedo ou mais
this?
tarde ela volta. Você quer falar que isso aí
Would you
talvez
like to
vai
talk
ser
about
difícil
that?
pra você. Eu às vezes fico em dúvida
I
aqui
sometimes
se é o
am in
verbetão ou
doubt
se
if
sou
it's
eu que
the
devo
entry
responder.
writer or myself
Você
to
está falando a
answer the
questão
question.
da vontade,
But
da
you're talking
persistência
about
da
will,
pessoa. Então é
persistence.
igual todo vício,
So it's
depende
just
do
like
nível de
any
grau de
other
vício que ela tem.
vi
Então ela vai, dependendo do vício, ela vai precisar ser
any other
internado. Se não é uma questão de
vice.
internação, ela vai ter que tomar uma decisão
If
pelo órgão da sede
one should not be
situação.
in a
Não, eu não vou
hospital,
fazer mais, se não presta, não presta.
if
Não
it's
adianta
not
fazer mais,
necessary,
acabou.
one should
Então,
only
é questão da
decide and
pessoa, é
say,
a
this is not for me,
persistência
and that's
dela
all. That's
com a
over.
determinação e não
It
fazer
depends on the
aquilo que ela
persistence
considera
and
que tá fazendo mal pra
determination
ela.
against what's doing bad
Família de novo.
to one's health.
Aqui estava vendo na página 11
I was
aí,
reading
número
in
2,
page
pensamento
11.
realista. Só para dar um introito, eu acho que talvez
I would like to say that the most common is for people to not live within reality. So this looks simple, but it's not. The realistic thought is something complicated. And of course, the more evolved the consciousness within consciential evolution, the more realistic the thoughts. I would like you to elaborate on
Eu acho que é
that.
isso mesmo, Arlindo.
I agree
Há
with you,
muita
Arlindo.
ficção.
There is
É só
too
você
much
ver, ligar a
fiction.
televisão, as
Turn
novelas,
on
eu
your
vejo que isso
TV,
tem uma
the
relação
soap
enorme
operas, for
com
example.
esse segundo
There
item
is
da volitionologia,
a
que é
relation
emoção
to
vivificante.
the second
O que é
item,
isso,
which
né?
is the
Gente, eu acho que todo mundo
vivifying
sabe, né,
emotion.
como é que aquela,
Everybody knows.
se chorei ou se sofri, o
For example,
importante é que
if
emoções
I
eu vivi.
cried or if
Então,
I,
isso, muitas
if I
pessoas, elas
smiled,
vivem assim.
the important
Então,
is
elas
that I
acham
have
assim,
lived
é,
a life.
são tantas emoções.
So many
Então as
emotions.
pessoas,
So
é só você ver
people
novela, você
watch
ver
television,
filme. Então é aquela
soap
situação,
opera,
eu tô vivo
movies.
se eu tô emocionado.
They feel
então,
alive
eu não
if
tenho
they
sangue de
have
barata, né? Então a
emotions.
pessoa gosta, eu tenho raiva.
They
ou
have
eu tenho
anger
um amor intenso,
or,
uma paixão
intense
arrebatadora,
passion
ou aquele ódio terrível.
or that
Então a
terrible
pessoa ela vai
rage.
vivendo assim,
So
e ela
they
tem a
live this
convicção lá
way
dentro dela
and
que isso é que é
they
viver.
believe
Isso é sentir
that's
vivo.
how we need
Isso
to
é
live.
grande
That's
engano.
how
E
we
geralmente
feel
essas
alive.
pessoas,
And
quando
this
a
is
gente
a
vai falar da
mistake.
questão da
And we
afetividade
talk
mais
about
madura,
this
da
to
questão da
people about
afetividade mais
mature
mental-somática.
affection.
Italiano que bate no peito,
And
não.
she's
Então,
not
falando
talking about the
italiano,
Italian.
É o
See,
meu sangue
guys?
italiano que tem lá, né? Escondidinho. Então, olha só, o que acontece?
Well, what
Então,
happens
essas
is
pessoas geralmente
these
elas ficam muito
people
impactadas com a
they
Conscienciologia quando a
feel
gente fala da
a lot
afetividade
of
mais
impact
madura.
when we talk
Porque elas
about
acham, não, então
mature
isso é frieza. Então,
affection.
isso
They think we are
ser
cold.
frio. E ela não entende que essa
And they don't
afetividade mais, que a
understand
gente
that
coloca
this
aqui,
more
racional,
rational,
afetiva, serena, ela é
serene
hipervivaz.
and
E ela é
mature
mais genuína.
affection
Porque
is
essa
genuine,
afetividade,
is
essa
original,
emoção de altos e baixos,
because
de
these
paixão,
up
de
and
raiva,
up and
não é
downs
afetividade. Você
are
tem uma
not
ilusão entre a
affection.
ficção. É a ficção
We have
daquela
illusion,
pessoa. Então,
we
aquela
have
pessoa
a
tá sempre
fiction.
apaixonada e cada dia
People
por um
are
parceiro
always
diferente. Porque ela tá
falling
apaixonada é pela imagem
for
que ela criou para ela, e
different
não pelo
people
parceiro em si.
because they are in
Então, aquela
love
pessoa,
with
ela
the
passa
image
de,
they
como a
have
gente falou antes com a
created
professora Malo,
of
né,
the person,
da,
not
a
the
minha
person
grande
itself.
amigo, o meu grande amor
Like
da minha
the
vida, para aquela
great
pessoa que
love
não
of
presta,
my
que eu não
life,
quero
the
ver mais na
best
minha
friend
frente.
I've
Então,
ever
é tudo por
had,
emoção.
and
Que
all of a
afetividade
sudden
é
that
essa?
person is the
Aquela
one that
afetividade
I'm
que
not
mata,
supposed
né?
to see
Quer dizer, aquele
anymore
quem ama
because I
não mata, teve
hate
uma
them.
época que se matava todas as esposas,
There was
né,
the
e
time
namorados, e
when
continua se
wives
matando
and
por amor,
girlfriends
e ela
were killed
justificava, né?
because of
Não, eu matei
love.
por que amor é
And they
esse?
said,
Então,
"Oh, I
é
killed
uma
because
ideia
I
de que
loved
essa
her.
emoção eu
What
tenho
kind
que
of love is
lavar a minha
this?
honra."
I need to
Isso é um grande
to
fator. A pessoa não
have
quer.
my
Então, quando você fala pra
my
ela,
honor.
olha, pra você ser
So
desperto,
when you say to
você vai
these
ter
people
que
that
manter com
they
maior
need
controle
to
emocional, você
have
vai ter que
control
melhorar
of
sua
their
autoestima, isso é
emotions
frio. Não, eu não quero isso
due
pra
to
mim, não, isso não.
the
Assim eu não vou servir.
due to
Então, a
reach
gente vê que
intrusion
isso na
freeness,
sociedade
they
hoje,
say
só você
they
ver
don't
as
want to
tramas
pay
que
this
dá
price.
Ibope. É novela, é filme, tudo
So
tem
what
drama, né?
what do
Aquelas
people like?
situações
Drama,
complicadas, e aí tem um
movies,
Ibope altíssimo.
complicated
viver essa emoção. Então, o que eu
things.
vejo
They
também um
need
grande problema na sociedade
to live this
hoje
emotion. They
é
want
essa
to.
emoção aqui, ó.
This
É a
is a
pessoa,
problem
no
in
fundo,
our
ela acha
society.
que a exacerbação
People
emocional
think
é como
that
ela vai se
lots
sentir
of
vivo.
emotion
Então, qualquer
is
coisa,
how they are going to
admitir
feel
que a
alive.
superioridade
So
do
admitting
anti-emocionalismo
the
é que se você
superiority
vê
of
que o melhor é
non-emotion
superior, ser
is the
anti-emocional,
better
no sentido de você ter um controle
in
emocional,
the
vai
sense
fazer
of
você
having emotional
também
mastery
caminhar e
is
optar
what
por
leads
autoatitude
you
da
to
sede. Porque emoção é
self-deintrusion,
estado alterado de
because
consciência, né? Então, se você não
emotion
está pensando
is
direito
altered
emocional,
state of consciousness, so you're not thinking properly.
Só a conscienciologia
We think that only conscienciology talks about that. I have already read many authors from the Introphysical Society saying that mainly in the epistemological field, I don't know, in psychology there may be also, but they say that the emotion is against reason.
a
But
emoção a pessoa não pensa direito, né?
yeah, with the emotion, the person,
Adriana,
it blocks your
Pode falar.
good reasoning. Adriana, here in letter A, what sustain this emotionalism? Exactly this, because the person thinks that this is what vitalizes him. But they only think that, or this is the animal, the person feels pleasure with that. It's the hedonism. The person doesn't see the situation clearly. And there are people who live like that throughout their lives. And there is a friend, for example, this friend of mine at the school years, he used to be in love non-stop. And he used to conquest the girls, and then after 3 months he said, I don't want it anymore, and then he used to move on to the next girl. So there wasn't any affect, just the fantasy of the emotion. It's the passion for being in passion. Of course, maybe not in this level, but you have to check what level of this you still have, because it's a big block against being fixed in something. For example, the friendships, and then you don't have friendships because people have defects. Your mature affect, you will like people the way they are, and then you help the way you can without, of course, being connivant. But now, talking about affectivity, I would like to point out here the presence of Professor Luz Pinheiro. You haven't seen her yet. She came back. Lots of people wanted to talk to her because she had vanished, but she came back. Now, concerning effectiveness, we have to remember Elizabeth Taylor and Fábio Jr. They asked Fábio Jr.'s daughter, and she said, no, I'm not like my father, at least concerning marriage. And Valdo, what's interesting is that this kind of personality becomes the picture of the portrait of Dorian Gray, because when they are in passion, they vitalize, and when they lose that, they lose all that. They become older. So this is a result of their vampirization. Now, Adriana, when the person chooses self-deintrusion, then the person can carry out a self-consciential therapy, self-conscientiometry, and see the missing traits, weak traits, strong traits. What do you think should be the ideal strategy here to tackle the small ones, or what? And okay, then this is the second step that we even call the attention here to the identification of the weak traits in the emotional practices. There may be some disturbances, irrationalities that could be at the root, at the basis of that intrusion. For example, let's imagine the outbreaks of self-intrusion. The person has to think about, what am I defending here? My ego, my good life. What am I defending in this situation? Because when you do that, for example, when you get to the
teórico da Conscienciologia está aí para a gente
intrusion, and then
estudar.
there is all this
Agora,
theoretical
essa questão que
corpus
você
of
fala vai
conscienciology
depender
to
da
help
forma.
us
Por
study,
exemplo,
but
tem uma
it will
técnica
depend
da
on the form. For
consciencioterapia que
example,
você tem
there
os
is a
passos, né?
technique
Então você vai
of
analisar
consciential
a
therapy, the
situação,
technique of the
e
small
você vai
steps, and
ver
then you're going to
como que
analyze
você vai
that
seguir.
weak
O que
trait,
é
and you're going to see
interessante,
how you're going
por
to
exemplo,
move
vamos
along.
supor que
For
você
example,
pega
what's interesting
tração
here?
enorme lá,
You
e você tem vários
pick a
traços
big
secundários. Às
trait
vezes você
there,
pode
and there are
ir
several
pelas beiradas,
secondary
porque
traits.
vai te dar
Sometimes you can
mais
go
autoconfiança
around and
para você
round that
continuar
main
o seu
trait because
processo
it
de
will
treinamento
nurture
e
your
superação.
confidence in order
Mas isso
to tackle
depende
the
muito do
biggest traits.
caso.
But it
E tem
depends on the
casos,
case
vamos
because
supor, que você tem que
there are
cortar no
cases
osso
that you
mesmo,
have to
cirúrgico. Você tem
really
que parar com aquele
act
traço mesmo, não adianta ficar se
chirurgically
enrolando.
because
Você tem que ir
you
direto ao ponto.
have to go
Então, acho
straight
que
to the
nessa
point. So
hora aí
now,
entra
in
a
this
técnica da
case,
consciencioterapia,
there is
tem
these
lá todas as
several
consciencioterapeutas
techniques
vão
of
poder ajudar. A pessoa
consciential
avaliar qual
therapy.
é o momento,
The
né,
person
qual é
will
a
have to
situação que ela vai
evaluate
poder. E a
which is the
também,
moment,
né, vai
and
ajudar a
consciometry
fazer esse
2
mapeamento
will help
para ver
a
onde
map
atuar.
to
Mas é
see
difícil colocar
where
uma
the person
coisa
can
fechada,
act,
vai
but
depender
it's
do
difficult
teor, da
to
qualidade
go
daquela situação.
to a
Porque tem coisas
single
que tem que
view
cortar mesmo.
approach
Uma
because
coisa
there are
simples,
several
a pessoa fuma.
two different approaches at
Só tem
least.
que
For
cortar, não
example, the
adianta
person
aquela, eu vou pegar,
smokes.
não,
The
eu prefiro
person
cigarro, mas eu vou
has to
começar a
stop
tocar meio
it for
desorganização
good.
em casa. Não,
You
vai,
can't
tem que cortar o
think, no,
cigarro,
I'll first
porque tá
deal with my
desintoxicando
organization at
muito,
home.
você não
No,
vai
you have
conseguir
to
pensar
stop it
direito,
for
sua energia
good
vai estar alterada,
because your
entendeu,
energy will be
ô
altered.
João?
You will not
Então,
think
vai depender muito do
correctly and so
conteúdo
on
da
and so
situação.
forth. So it
É isso que eu
depends a
vejo,
lot on the
difícil
content
você
of the
fechar.
situation. I think that you
Tá?
can't have a single
Padre,
approach for it.
Pode falar? Opa, vamos lá, Fábio.
na página 9,
Page 9,
efeitologia,
effectology,
e depois neossinapsologia.
then in
O primeiro
neosynapsology, the first
efeito, depois a
effect, and
neossinapsologia.
then neosynapsology.
Olha, os efeitos dos extrapolacionismos
The effects of the parapsychical extrapolationisms in the creation of innermost frameworks of good feelings. You can't do that for yourself, for example. It is a extrapolationism. But you can see where you can get to. For example, I have already had extrapolationisms of being so well, feeling so well, I was in love with the universe that I can't do that by myself. It was an extrapolationism. I thought, well, I can live like that, but I can't reproduce that by myself. But at least you have the parameters, you know where you can get to. I think the megaphorization is one of the biggest elements you have today to know what you can do and how you can get there, but it will depend on your personal effort. And the neosynapsis is that, because here you are working with the formation of the good and the de-intruding neosynapsis, because intrusion freeness has to do with assistance, orthothoscenes, and so on and so forth, so we have to re-educate ourselves to think with more assistance. I think this entry you brought here is one of the most important ones, and there is something I would like to understand better concerns the inference. For example, if the person realizes the intraphysical reality the way he can with his prejudices and dogmas and others, how can we work with that? Through a link with multidimensionality, do you think that the person could let go of this rigidity to be de-intruded? Yes, and there is that entry, ignored ignorance. This is this cognitive fixation. And I think that in this specific moment, there are several approaches. One of the things, for example, if the person is electronautic, is very fixed to the interphysical life. If the person feels the energy, at least in his hands, the person will have this paradigm shift because the person is feeling, is self-persuasive. So you have to see what could be the way. There are people that work with logics, so through studies with all this theoretical corpus, the person will deconstruct ideas. So we have to see what's the best approach for the person. It doesn't mean that things are excluded, but for some people, energy will work better. For others, it will be through studying, through going deep.
ela vai se
tackling,
permitir se abrir para pensar diferente.
deepening the
Eu vejo mais ou menos
concepts,
por aí.
Sim,
so
então
it
seria
depends
entrar
on the
pelo fiel,
person.
por aquele ponto
Ver por
onde
onde
Yes,
que
you
a pessoa
have to
ela
see
vai
what's the
pegar.
best approach for that specific personality.
É sobre isso mesmo. Eu vejo que
Yes,
na
I
inferência
see
tem uma
that
dose de
in the
orgulho,
inference there is
assim,
a
que é
certain
um
level
manancial.
of
Depois é que vem
selfishness,
o resto.
which is the
Então,
manential,
eu,
which
pelo
is the
menos no ponto de
source.
vista, não sei como que você
Everything
vê,
derives
mas
from
eu
that. I
noto
don't know
que
how
nas
you see that,
inferências,
but I
nessas
see that
afirmações, nessas
the
coisas assim,
inferences, the
elas têm muito
affirmations,
de orgulho. A base
they
mesmo,
are
o
based
orgulho,
on
você pego numa condição de
selfishness.
fragilidade, ou que não domina. Então
You're caught up in a
um
situation of
sobrepairamento patológico.
fragility
Eu estou
and
muito acima disso. Então eu
it's a
percebi que tem
pathological
amparador assim,
reasoning. For
assado. Então
example,
eu sou especialista em tal ou qual
the person
tema.
thinks
Isso
I
me
am
dá o
a
direito de
special
tirar
expert in
tais
this topic or
conclusões.
not,
Eu
and
vejo
then
isso
it will
muito
give the
comum
person the right
na
to
área
come to
intelectual,
conclusions.
na nossa,
I
inclusive,
see
não
that
está isento
this is
desse
very common in
posicionamento.
all areas,
E vejo que o
including
trabalho
in
sobre o orgulho poderia
ours.
ser
So I
mais
see that
aprofundado.
this
Como
matter of
você vê?
selfishness
Não, é o
could
que a gente
be
coloca lá na ignorância
more
ignorada, né? O
tackled.
dom da
Yes,
verdade,
this
né?
is what we
Ignorância
talk
ignorada
about
é
in
aquela
this
pessoa que ela
entry.
pega, ela não admite que ela não sabe, então ela sabe tudo.
In this
Então, ela acha
entry,
que aquelas
this
cognições
ignored
dela,
ignorance,
geralmente
for
são
example,
parcas, porque a
the
gente sempre
person
vai ter
think
cognição
that
parca, porque existe um mundo de
the
conhecimentos
person
por
knows
aí,
it
e a
all,
pessoa acha que
Mr.
aquilo,
knows it all,
aquilo tá
but
bom para ela.
this is
E ela
not
se fecha
the
naqueles
case,
conhecimentos
because
e não
the
se
universe is
abre a
out there,
tentar
and then
saber
the
o que ela
person
não sabe,
will
ou se abrir aquilo que ela não
restrict
sabe. Eu acho que tá
himself just
perfeita
to
a sua
that
colocação, é isso
sector of
mesmo.
knowledge. So I
É o
think that
orgulho.
what you
E
say
a
is
conscienciologia, quando ela
right. This
traz
is
o
the
princípio da
the
descrença, é
selfishness approach, and
justamente
when
a
conscientiology
grande
talks about the principle of
antídoto para
disbelief,
isso, né?
I
A
think this is
teática do
the
princípio da
antidote against
descrença
that.
é
The
o nosso antídoto. Porque a gente
theories
está
of the
sempre
principle of
pensando, peraí, não
disbelief
acredito em nada, eu vou
is
ter
a
que
way
vivenciar,
to
eu
go
vou ter que
against
ver, então
that.
é
Yes,
isso.
well,
Bom, vamos ver como
you
é que é a
wait,
situação.
stop, think,
Eu vou estar
and
o tempo todo
experience
buscando
things by
experimentar
yourself
e
to get your
aberto ao
own
novo.
conclusions.
Eu
So you
estou
will be
aberto e a verdade relativa
open
de
to the
ponta,
new
né?
things,
Então,
to
sempre
the
ela
leading
está
edge
aberta,
relative
ela está sempre
truth. So you
em
always
contínuo
open.
aperfeiçoamento.
It is
Então, a gente tem
a
esses dois, quer dizer, o princípio da descrença e o
continuous
princípio da Verbon, que estão interligados,
betterment.
eles são os
So the
nossos
principle of the
grandes
leading edge relative truth
balizadores da
is
conscienciologia para
interlinked.
evitar
So they
que a
give the
gente caia nessas
parameters of
armadilhas aí que a gente já
conscientiology
caiu
to
no
help
passado.
us
É,
avoid
padre, para
traps.
isso que a Malo trouxe muito
Yes,
serve pra gente.
what
As
Malo
nossas
has said
próprias
is very
ideias
important
podem
because
muitas
our
vezes servir como
ideas
nossos
could
próprios dogmas.
work
Se a
as
gente
our
não
dogmas
der
if
passo
we
extra, né, e
don't
ficar dentro
take a further,
dessa formatação
take a step
engessada,
further.
achando
So
que,
Aí entra a questão da
yes,
abertura da
then
autocrítica,
there
da
is
autocrítica
the
intelectual.
openness
Isso é um
E se
ponto.
você
to
está aberto à crítica,
intellectual
você vai, pelo menos,
criticism. If you
ouvir.
are open to
Sim.
E
that,
se
you are
você
going
ouve
to
um
at
ponto de
least
vista diferente do
listen
seu,
to
você
it.
vai parar para
And if
pensar.
you listen
E
to a
você pode
different
achar,
point
não, tá
of view,
errado, mas
you
ou
can
tá
even
certo.
think, well,
Então,
no, that's
tudo
wrong.
isso
Oh,
são
yeah, that's
formas
right.
de a
And
gente tá tentando
all of
abordar em
these are
vários
ways
ângulos
to
essa situação
deal,
da
to tackle with
diversidade. São
that.
vários
That's
vieses
how we're
diferentes
trying
que
to
a gente está tentando
understand
trazer.
Por
intrusion
isso que a
freeness
consciência
from
cobaia
different
muitas vezes
perspectives.
nos ajuda
That's why the
nesse
guinea pig
sentido.
consciousness
certeza.
helps us a lot in this sense.
Às vezes a heterocrítica,
Sometimes the
esse comportamento de
hetero
orgulho, ele esteriliza
criticism,
a
Não
heterocrítica.
deixa
Does-
ninguém fazer,
Não é
né?
só a questão da
the
pessoa não
selfish
gostar de receber Cristo.
positioning
Simplesmente esteriliza.
will
Não há a menor
sterilize,
possibilidade de alguém
will
chegar porque caso
make
perdido.
it impossible
Quando é um caso
to
perdido,
get
fica assim nessa
crit-
posição. Então é um tipo
critics.
de autismo
So it's
também,
a
né,
kind of
intelectual,
autism,
parece
intellectual
produtivo,
autism.
é uma
It
coisa
seems
que
to be
parece, tudo parece.
productive.
Mas se
Everything
você vai
seems to
ver,
be, but
tá no terreno da
when you
ficção
see,
mesmo.
it's still in the realm of fiction. You have already, I don't know if you have already talked about that, but the clarity concerning the improductivity of the cycle, thinking badly, evoking the intruders, strengthening animosities and feeding pathologies.
Isso já passou.
Yes,
Na hora
for
que você
example,
opta
here,
pelo desafeto,
when
já
you
passou, já
choose,
tá passando
when
da
you
situação.
opt
É
for
justamente
the
isso, é o
intrusion,
ciclo.
you
A
have
gente coloca antes,
already
né, a suspensão definitiva
cut
do ciclo
this
da
off.
vingança.
For
Quer dizer,
example,
a pessoa
this
já vê que
a
isso é uma
cycle
bobagem,
of
que a
vengeance,
ela
of
tá
the
assediando o
vendetta,
outro,
for
que ela tá, isso
example.
não vai adiantar
You see
nada.
that you
É
are
fazer a
intruding the
vingança é
others.
justiça pelas
They
próprias mãos,
are taking
então ela não
a
tá
revenge on
considerando
somebody
que existe
is making justice with your own hands, the person doesn't consider that there is this para-justice, something much bigger that we don't even have a notion of. So when you understand that this is not productive, then we come to the question of not thinking bad about others, because when you think bad, you are going to evoke intruders, not only yours, but the others too. And they are going to strengthen the lack of affect, the animosities. So the animosities will be nurtured because you are thinking bad, the person likewise, and then you will feed that pathological bond. And then you are feeding, nurturing that from both sides. But when you see that this is unproductive, you will cut that off. You will start paying more attention to your reasonings. Yes, you break the cycle of the intrusion. It gets to you and then you break that down. Yes, I think that's what we have to do. We have to break that cycle. Yeah, well, with me it won't go ahead. It will break here. There is the principle. When one doesn't want to fight, two people won't fight at all. Here I would like to make explicit something about the dancing that will take part in discernimento. There will be an initial presentation on a specific Arabic dance. There will be an workshop for women till 5 p.m. So it will be just a woman club there. Okay? I will be there at the very beginning just to see the presentation. Now, when badly treated by someone, by a co-worker, instead of answering to that, treating badly too, instead of that, you try to understand why the person acts like that, trying to understand why the person does that. Do you think that's the right approach? Yes, of course, you'll see how you can help. Professor Waldo has already read, for example, the unconditional exercisation of energies. Try to make that environment healthier, better, because sometimes it will make his intruders go away. Professor Waldo would like to compliment? No, it's fine. Now, being aware of the difficulty to coexist with a very pathological family context, is it cosmoethical to step away knowing that it will be difficult to offer any help whatsoever because it wouldn't work? Well, you have to see the case, because sometimes it's better to step away, strengthen yourself and come back to help. But you gotta see, because you can't leave shooting them, fighting with everybody, because it won't help. But if you were born there, it wasn't by chance, it was on purpose. You have a link with them, you have to see. But now, listen to this one. The extra-physical intrusion gets to the CHSC, the Center for Higher Studies of Consciousness, of Consciousology. This is where we are here. The intrusion comes here. See, the intruder is the assisted. This is a pole of assistance. So where there are assistants, there are the assisted. So the intrusion will be here. The thing is, the intrusion, for example, the person could be in need of energies or is very ill-intentioned. It varies a lot, but the thing is, the self-intrusion is when you let this intrusion penetrate your interconsciousology. So this is this paradox. The fact of being intrusion-free doesn't mean that you won't have any intrusion. You're going to have lots of intrusion, but they will be in need of your help. The main difference is that I won't have any gap in my interconsciousology to let that intrusion come in. So I will seek for a condition in order not to be disturbed by this intrusion. The intrusion is Urbi et orbi, it's everywhere in this dimension.
Acho que seria bom esclarecer.
Sim,
I
por
think
favor.
that it's good to make this explicit, because I say here that I am the most intruded person here in CAEC. So there are several intrusions here, because they are the assisted ones. CAEC is the CHSC, the Center for Higher Studies of Conscienciology.
Nas costas, sem fazer careta.
And you have to deal with that
Aqui no B, Adriana e
with your hands tied
quando a gente cai na mão de psicopata,
on your back. But now, for example, when you deal with a psychopath, for example, when the person is on the verge of psychopathy,
porque nada é por acaso.
there is this self-intrusion because nothing happens by chance, but Professor Meyer knows about this story because I have already talked about that. I sent energy to this person,
E ele melhorou muito,
and
de
this
repente
person
ele embolou e veio, parece que muito
enhanced
pior a
his
questão
condition,
de prejudicar
but then
por
the
simplesmente
person came back
prejudicar.
with
Então, como que a gente,
even
quando é uma situação meio extrema,
worse
assim,
conditions,
como é que a
and
gente
in
procede
these
para conseguir manter,
extreme
ficar mandando
conditions,
energia, quer dizer, às
what
vezes
can
eu
we
nem
do
sei
in
se é
order
bom
to
ficar
do that? Sometimes I don't even know
pensando
if
tanto
it's
mesmo,
good
tentando,
to
num bom sentido, quer dizer, o que
those
vocês
nice
podem
about that
orientar,
person. I don't know
assim,
what
numa
I can do.
situação dessa?
What would be your guidance?
Respondam
Não, a
os
primeira
dois,
coisa é
não
o seguinte.
briguem.
O problema de você mexer com energia dentro do avião ou em terra?
Não, não, uma situação real agora em terra, professor. Agora
Oh, this is a matter here
Devia ter a
on
pessoa
land,
nas nuvens, é uma coisa.
because she works as an air
Não, não, uma situação-
hostess,
Eu já tive que trabalhar
air
dentro de
stewards,
avião nos Estados Unidos.
because you have to see. I have already had to work a lot
Tirou de letra.
in
Esse caso foi
the airplanes.
erro
Yes,
meu,
in this
uma
case
questão
it was
jurídica, que eu fiz
a mistake I
negócio sem contrato,
made.
foi
I did something
erro grave
without
meu, e, assim,
a
eu sei que
contract.
eu
It
tô
was a
pagando por
mistake
uma
I
falha,
made,
mas
and I know that I'm
cair-
paying
a minha
for
questão
this
é, cair
mistake.
na mão de uma pessoa
But
que é
then
limítrofe da
you
psicopatia, de ser mau
deal
caráter
with
mesmo.
this
Como que a gente
person,
procede
this ill person. What
numa
can we
situação
do
dessa,
in
em termos
this
de
situation, in
energia,
terms
de
of
mandar energia,
energies,
de
in terms of
sensibilizar, de agir,
those
agir
scenes, in
com
terms
firmeza,
of
Primeiro é perdoar a
acting?
pessoa e não
First
ter
is
mágoa.
to forgive the person
Mesmo
and not
que ela
having
Hoje, na hora do almoço, nós
resentment.
estávamos falando
For
disso.
example,
Eu ainda vejo que muita gente
today
aqui ainda tem
lunchtime,
mágoa
I
dos
see that
outros.
several people here still
Não
have
perdoam,
resentments with
não
the others.
esquecem.
They
Tem que esquecer,
don't
tem que
forget. You have to
ajudar,
forget. You have to help. You
Agora,
have
se o
to
processo
go
é
on.
jurídico, tem que
But
colocar advogado,
if the
advogado
matter
existe pra isso.
is legal, you have to have lawyers. They exist for that.
Advogado, às vezes, ele pode ser
A lawyer
desassediador.
sometimes can be
Não é só assediador.
a matter of the intrusion.
Como
Not
a gente
only
sabe
intruders,
que
but
na
they can
questão
be
de,
the intruders
por
too.
exemplo, colocar um advogado e para não ter rabo preso com a pessoa.
For example, when we have a lawyer in order not to have
Não
a
retrucar
problem with the
nada.
person, the
Não
thing is
fazer
not to
revertério.
answer
Dê o retorno
anything,
positivo das
is
coisas
to
sobre a
give
pessoa.
s-
Ela manda
positive
coisa
things
má,
back to the
você
person.
manda
The person
perfume de volta.
sends you bad
É o
things,
sândalo.
you send parfum
Esse é o
back,
caminho, é um
you
jeito.
send good energies back. This is the way.
Eu, por exemplo, vou confessar uma coisa para vocês que eu já coloquei até
I
lá
will
no
confess something to you. I have already written that in the
dicionário. Porque
entry.
não fui eu que arranjei esse
Zephyr
nome.
helped a
Foram
lot
outros
with
que
me
me deram.
because it wasn't
Agora,
myself
quando me deram o nome, esse é filho,
who
eu
came up with
comecei
this
muito
name.
a refletir
Others
sobre
came
aquilo.
up with that name. When they gave me
tive
that name,
que
I started
envergar
thinking about that, and then
personagem,
I had to
incorporar o personagem.
stand
Eles pensam
up
assim de
to
mim.
this
Eu não
character.
posso ir
I
contra
thought,
esse
well,
povo
they
que acha
think
que eu sou
they
assistente.
think I am like that. They think I am an
partir
assistant.
disso,
I
eu
can't
vim
go
trazer.
against that
Da
idea they
primeira
have
coisa, nunca mais eu
about
pensei
me.
mal dos
And
outros
then
pra valer.
I never thought, after that, I have never thought bad
Agora
about
veja,
others.
Só isso não
But
resolve. Você
it
não
doesn't
pensar mal dos
solve
outros ainda não
things
resolve.
yet.
A gente tem que ajudar. você tem
We
que ir
have to
atrás,
help.
você
You
tem
have
que
to
continuar,
follow. You
tem que
have
fazer o
to
follow-up, acompanhamento.
keep track of the
E
situation.
a gente fica na Terra ainda, tem vida ainda para trabalhar sobre
And
isso.
there are several lives to work
Então,
with that
perdão,
still.
Eu
So
que eu precisei de
the,
perdoar os outros, já faz muito tempo.
forgiveness, what I
Eu
had
não
to
acho que eu
forgive
preciso
people,
mais disso.
There's
Cadu
It's
Zé.
been a long time because of Zéfiro in Portuguese, Zéfiro. It helped me a lot, lots of reflection.
Mas veja, eu
It
também acho.
helped me to
As
forgive
pessoas
people.
aqui
So I
tem
don't
muitas
think
que
that I
ainda não
need that
chegaram
anymore.
nesse nível do perdão. Então tá
But
danado.
there are many people here who haven't come to this
Psicossoma
level, the
ainda
level
está
of
carregado,
forgiveness. The
empeçonhado,
psychosoma
empesteado,
is still
envenenado.
Mas
poisoned,
o fato
que perdoar.
do Zéfiro, porque
intoxicated.
o senhor estava no extrafísico,
But you
então
were in the
a
extraphysical
visão
dimension, so the view, the panoramic view is different. Yes, but I always tried to apply his process here in the human life because he has the greater
Memória grande.
memory,
Eu não tenho, na minha
the hollow
retrocognição
memory.
aqui não tem.
In
O
my
Valdo
retrocognition,
é
I don't
sempre
have
menor em
that.
matéria mnemônica.
Valdo is
Entende?
always
Ele não.
shorter of
Quando o
memory.
Valdo é o Zéfiro,
But when Valdo
ele
becomes
tem a
Zephyr,
recuperação dos conscientes.
he recovers
Então,
all
aí
the
muda tudo.
units of lucidity,
Então, sobre
then
isso,
everything
vale a pena,
changes.
num caso
Now,
cascudo e
do you
assediado
think
assim,
that in a
tentar
very difficult
fazer
situation
trabalho
as
de
this
energia
one,
pra ver se vem um
dealing with
rapport
the energies to see if
extrafísico
there
do
is
que
this
pode
extraphysical
causar.
Mas agora o
rapport
problema é esse,
to
não. Você
help
tem
me
que
out in this
confiar
task?
e
No, the
perdoa,
main thing is
passa
to
por cima e
be
sobrepara.
confident about
Se os
that,
reparadores
to
veem que é
overcome the
importante,
situation,
eles mesmos
forgive.
vão
If the
instruir
helpers
você
think
sobre o
that it's important, they will
Você vai ter
give you
inspiração para
insights in order to do
Comigo
something
sempre
else.
acontece isso.
It always
Por
helps.
exemplo,
It always
processo de
happens to
conflito
me.
grande,
For
eu
example,
nunca arranjo muito tempo por causa disso.
conflicts, big
Acaba
conflicts,
desvendando
it
tudo,
doesn't,
acaba tirando
they
o
don't
dilema, o
happen to
impasse,
me
a
because
pressão, o
I can
problemão,
deal with that.
o problemão crítico.
The critical point.
Então o processo perdoa, é a primeira coisa que
So
eu
you have to
tenho. E abençoa a
forgive,
pessoa,
and then you have to bless the
abençoa a
person.
pessoa. Envolva essa pessoa com energia.
You have to
Chega num
evolve
certo ponto que ela vai deixar você.
to pack
porque
the
mesmo se
person
ela não
with your
mudar,
good energies, even
ela
if
já
the
não
person
tem
doesn't
mais
change, at
empatia,
least
ela não sente que
the
você
person
alimenta
won't
mais qualquer
feel
coisa
that
do
you
ódio
nurture
dela, ou da loucura
anything
dela, ou
from
do
the
desvio que ela
person's
alimenta.
Uma última pergunta
problems,
importante. Os prejuízos
deviations.
que ficam de
Now, one
rebarba
more
de uma situação
question.
assim,
The
muitas vezes
losses
fica prejuízo material
deriving
de
from
várias-
such
de várias-
situation,
de várias
material losses,
ordens. O que a gente pode tirar de lição
and
desses
so on and so
prejuízos?
forth. What can we
Prejuízos são
learn from
apenas as molduras
such
dos
losses?
prejuízos íntimos da consciência.
These losses are just the frame of your interconsciential
É o
losses,
íntimo,
the
o
inner,
interno, o íncito.
the
Esse aí que é o
inherent
sério, porque esse
losses.
é o que alimenta o resto.
These are the ones that will nurture all the others. The material problems are just
Entende? Mas agora, o que
secondary.
a gente faz com a gente é o
But
seguinte,
what we do
o que a
with
gente
ourselves
leva
is
com a
that
gente é
we
o
have to
interconsciencial.
take
Você
with
tem soma
ourselves.
com
We
aquilo.
take with ourselves
Você tá entendendo por que
interconsciential
que eu falo
stuff.
do
That's
Zéfiro?
why I talk about
Vocês
Zephyr.
todos vão chegar à
All of
conclusão
you
igual,
will
cedo
come
ou
to the
tarde.
conclusion,
Tem
just like
certeza
me,
disso.
sooner or later. I am
Plena
sure of that.
convicção.
I have that
Muitos
inside
já vão
me.
começar já entre essa vida e a próxima.
Many people will start
Vocês
with
vão olhar
that
muito
between this
o seu
life and the
processo
next
como
one.
consciência
You will
extrafísica,
see your situation as an extra
E não
physical
vão esquecer
consciousness,
disso.
and you will
A hora que a gente começa
you
a
will
colocar a
not
nossa
forget
consciência
that
superior,
when we
a nossa condição de consciência,
give
tudo melhora.
priority to our extra
Melhora,
physical
eu tô falando
consciousness
assim,
situation
acachapante
rather than our
mesmo.
intraphysical
Ou seja,
consciousness
de maneira
situation,
embasadora.
everything gets better
O
for
processo,
good.
por exemplo,
Definitely.
isoline, você tá entendendo?
You will get to
Correto,
this
grande,
ISO
cosmovisiológico.
pattern within
Então,
a
o problema é esse.
cosmovisiological
Considera
situation.
o maior problema que você tem
Do
nessa
you
vida
consider
como
the
coisa
main
pequena,
problem you
isso, né?
have in this life as a bad thing, as a very temporary thing, because it
Problema grande é aquele que
concerns
você
just
carrega com
this
você, faz
interphysical
milênio, ainda não
situation.
mudou.
A big problem is what you carry with
Entendeu?
you for 1 millennium
Tem
and
pessoa
hasn't
que
changed.
ela é implicada
There are
com
people,
alguém.
for example, who
Essa
have problems with
implicância, às
other
vezes, tem
people,
milênio.
and
Tem
this
uma dúzia de
has
vidas
been
que
there
a
for
coisa vem, e a
over
pessoa não
millennia,
perdoou, não perdoou,
a
não
dozen
perdoou,
of
não
lives that the
perdoou,
person
quer dizer,
hasn't forgiven, hasn't forgiven, hasn't
Então, o
forgiven.
processo é abrir mão
So
disso.
you have to let that go.
Abençoa.
You have
Outra coisa.
Something else to say.
Quando uma mãe ou um pai
When a
recebe
mother
um
or a
filho ou uma
father
filha
receives a child
que era inimigo
which
frontal
was
de tudo da
an
vida,
enemy
já é uma bênção.
it means a blessing, because there are cases where these people don't deserve to have their enemies as children. Think about it. People complain about this process, these injuries, these issues, but it's a blessing. Let's thank for that. It's huge, because there are thousands that want the same and they are not able to. Extraphysically, I have seen many of this, and it's a shame. It's a shame. It's very serious. Professor, you said that you suffered a lot. Yeah, because I have this inner conflict of my own condition. Me, as a consciousness, I need to come to a very serious conclusion to clean everything, definitely, here. Because then I will have some problem, the problem to take this decision of mine to the next body. After when I had the other bodies, I was able to overcome. But in this life, I don't remember having anger. And I reason a lot. People are mistaken, but I reason about that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do anything regarding conscientiology. But this doesn't make me feel bad. I wouldn't have this humor I do have. You would not stand me if I did otherwise. The conflict was when I was Zephyr, okay? I know that. And I needed to imprint this reality the faster I could. It was before that life I talk about. In that body I said, I want to have consciousness, I want to be aware. Otherwise I'll have the genetics, heritage, the mythology over me, the family with lots of pressure. And it's not easy. Think about it. Imagine coming in this life within circumstances, and it's not my case, okay? Monarchic ones. You are under the monarchy jurisdiction. We don't need to talk about monarchy in Brazil, but think about coming within a family, which is an industry, a family industry. Think about it. You can't let go. You can't follow the crowd. So I started working. This is one of the most serious things regarding my retrocognitions. That's what first came when I was a child, to see how it really was. Today, I am calm regarding this. This is what gives me peace. And I think that the real felicity, the real happiness must start from this, the universal forgiveness, the definite one, which is the enriched forgiveness. In the whole of forgiveness, there is follow-up, the interexistentiality structure, a series of conditions. The more you don't think bad, you don't think ill of others, there must be adjustments to be made. There are pendencies. Think about what I'm talking about. It's some subtlety within this issue. But do you know where I started seeing this? In the extra-physical dimension. When you start making assistance and you meet lots of people, it's a huge problem. There's another confession I would like to say regarding Zephyr. I have some which are written in my notebooks. I asked one of these Serenissimus. It's not any Serenissimus I talk about like Monja that treats me as a mother or a daughter. I asked this Serenissimus, among all these people, from all these people that come here to Pandeiro, is there anyone to which I think ill? Do you want a worse question? Do you know what he told me? If it had happened, this construction, this extraphysical construction, would already have exploded, blown away. It would be impossible. With that answer, I felt home. I felt like home. I got strength to see things. We had several sessions, like an assembly with those people, and I wanted to know. Because, first, I always felt good, and that there was nothing against me, but there were people who had different thoughts, different opinions, people from everywhere. So I wanted to know if I was against any of them. It was not related to that. The problem was the extraphysical reurbanization. So he told me not to confuse the general work with my personal life, and he was right. And it made me a relief. And it was in the 70s. We worked there until 1985, approximately. So you really need to think about this sanctification of your enemies. If people have created an aversion, something against you, all of a sudden, out of nothing, it's just a bless. And if you have already forgiven, cleaned something, cleaned everything, there will be a conviviality. There will be a coexistence. How is it going to be? Your coexistence must show your inner decision, your interconsciential decision. It must show. Think about it. It's very important within all these things we're talking today. Waldo, why we don't have an extra-physical identity to honor this conduct? Can't we make something otherwise? Instead of writing about what we do, right? Taking these problems we don't master yet to register. I think that we need to keep this. We need to keep our eyes on it and put all these problems in the personal cosmoethical code. People ask me, what do I put here in this code, Waldo? I say, all of your problems, mainly the emotional ones. Is there something enrooted in your mind, like a root, I mean? Put it in your cosmoethical personal code. This is relevant, this is cosmoethical, this is important. And it could change the existential personal cycle, right? You need to change now, people. Recycling is now. Otherwise, there will be cry. You will regret. It's nonsense. The problem is now. Act now. Forget now. It's not within 5 minutes. It's now. Here. In this moment. Today, there will be the last preparatory workshop for the first forum of politics and holosomatic health in ICCC. The place is the OIC from 3 p.m. The longevity group, the somatic invisible college, OIC volunteers, and every volunteers interested in health care. So these are the politics of health care. At 3 p.m., okay? Professor, you talked about thinking about all this and sanctifying our enemies. Should we understand these people and not go against them?
Não, não é não
No,
refutar, não.
no, it's not just
Problema é esse.
refuting.
Se ele, por exemplo, perguntar, você vai
If
acabar
they
refutando, você
ask,
tem que dar sua
you
opinião,
will
não é isso?
answer, okay? You need to
problema
give
é
your
não
opinion. The
ficar
problem
no
is
nível
not
dele.
being
Jamais ir
in
pra
the same
sarjeta que ele
level.
está.
Don't go to hell with them.
Entendeu? Você
Don't jump
sobrepara,
from the
você
bridge
vai
with them.
apelar para ajudar,
You
mas você não
go
fica
to
lá
them,
com ele.
but to help,
Se ele não quiser sair,
not to
você
stay with them.
permaneça sobrepairando o
If they
processo.
don't want to leave
Agora,
that
esse
condition,
sobrepairamento,
you just
ele tem que
overcome.
ser assentado no perdão,
But you need
na
to
compreensão,
use
na
forgiveness,
vontade de fazer
comprehension,
assistência,
will to
na
make
fraternidade pura,
assistance,
se for possível.
the simple fraternity, if possible. You said this is a bless and this should help
É porque
everybody.
na hora que você
Yeah, because
reduz
when
uma
you
coisa que está
reduce
errada,
something
o
that is
holocene
wrong,
melhora,
the
as energias
holocene
melhoram,
improves,
você
the
melhora,
energies
as pessoas com
improves,
quem
you
você vive vão
improve,
melhorar,
people
a pessoa
living
que a
with
outra
you
pessoa,
improve,
convive vai
and
melhorar,
other
o
people related
holocene
to
dela
these
vai
other
melhorar,
people
vai haver uma
improve,
reciprocidade,
there will be a
melhoria, tudo melhora.
reciprocity, everything becomes
Então, por exemplo,
great.
lembre-se da sutileza
So
daquele
remember the
casal que brigou no
subtleties
aeroporto.
of that couple that had a fight in the airport and they had to come back to clean that
Todo mundo já
energy.
esqueceu, aquilo já melhorou. Mas
Okay,
nunca
everybody forgot
ficou
about that
aquela
fight.
raiz
However,
escura,
there was
fedorenta,
a
pestilenta,
stinky
está
root
infestando o aeroporto.
which was
O
making
restaurante
the
do
airport dirty.
Agora, se a pessoa
the
for lá
restaurant.
e colocou a energia boa, ela vai
But
melhorar
if
aquilo,
the
que essas
couple
coisas
went there,
parecem
went back
fáceis.
there and put some good
Uma
energy,
vez eu perguntei
everything
para
would clean.
desses técnicos, estilo de gente
Once
que
I
é
have asked
um extra
one of
físico aí.
these technicians
Eu perguntei
like
para ele
AEC
assim,
and I asked
o
him,
que é que fica mais? O pior
what
ou o
lasts
melhor?
more, the best
Eu
or
disse,
the
"É
worst?" He said,
Depende do
well, it
carregamento."
depends. It depends on the
Isso é
loading.
terrível o que ele falou.
This is terrific.
Você está entendendo? Depende.
Depends
Outra
on the
coisa,
loading.
aí eu não perguntei para ele, mas eu pergunto para
And
vocês.
I ask
O que
you,
carrega mais?
what
Um sentimento
is more
ruim ou um
strong,
sentimento
the
bom?
bad or the good feeling?
Aí é um problemão.
It's a huge problem.
Geralmente, a pessoa mais encolerizada
The most
é a que é a mais
the
histriônica.
person with more rage
Por exemplo, a pessoa
is
quando
the
ela
one
fica
that
alegre demais,
makes
começa a chorar de alegria.
so
Mas o
more
choro dela é bom.
with
diferente.
the
Agora,
one
o cara que
that
tá com
has
raiva
more
não chega a
reactions.
chorar de alegria. Ele quer chupar o olho do outro. Você está entendendo?
When people are happy, they can even cry
diferente.
with
Então,
happiness.
tem esse
But when
do
they
carregamento.
when they feel anger,
Esse
they don't
carregamento
want
tem
to
que
cry. They just want to
Será que
kill
conta a
other
questão da energia mais
people.
densa? Porque a raiva tem uma energia de bicho, né?
Would
Então,
Professor,
vai
would
carregar
the
mais
dance
forte, talvez, em
Para nós
energy
entendermos isso
count
tudo, a
on
pessoa
this?
tem que estudar muito histrionismo,
Yes, but
interpretação.
we should study a lot
É por
interpretation.
isso que eu sempre estou falando
That's
para
why I
vocês.
always
Vamos ver se a
tell
pessoa-
you
Isso é muito importante.
this is very important.
Entende? Eu posso bancar o carrasco aqui, etc. Tal, toda
I
cara,
can
esse
pretend
negócio
I am the bad guy here,
não há
but
taquicardia,
within my
não há
heart
energia
there is no
negativa, não tem
tachycardia,
nada.
there is
Isso é
no bad
histrionismo.
energy, it's just
A pessoa tem que
interpretation.
entender. Você já
You need to
pensou
understand this.
se
Just
todas
imagine
essas atrizes
if all
e
these
atores
actors
que fazem papel
who,
de vilões e vilãs,
pretend to be
se eles fossem realmente
the
igual
bad
àquilo,
guys
como é que seria?
in the soap
Ia
operas,
só durar
if they
filme.
were just like
Então,
that,
tem muitos caras que já fizeram 60 filmes.
they would last only
Quer dizer,
one
eles
movie,
não
but they
sentem
have
aquilo.
done
Porque se sentisse, como é que ia
hundreds
ser?
of movies. They don't feel that.
É muito importante, então, a gente
It's
estudar
very
o processo
important
histriônico
to
devido à
study
farsa.
the interpretation.
Podia aprofundar essa coisa da recusa do erro.
Waldo, could you elaborate on the refusal of the mistake?
Pois é, não, ele tem o erro. Ele errou,
Well,
você já pegou, você entendeu,
if
você
there
tá
is a
por cima
person
disso.
that had
Ele
made a
insiste em
mistake
você.
and you have forgiven
Vê por onde é que você
and
faz.
they
Abordagem,
insist,
que flanco,
you just
qual viés,
try to help.
que modo que você tem que chegar.
Try
Qual a vertente
to know
de
what is the approach
acessibilidade que ele oferece.
that
Esse é o caminho
the
para
person
ajudar.
offers
Agora, ó, eu nesses
for you
pontos
to
todos,
reach
eu
them.
hoje jogo com o processo extrafísico.
Nowadays, I
Eu
use
ponho em
the
primeiro lugar.
extraphysical
Tem problema, eu
process
posso resolver.
whenever I
Com
can.
base extrafísica, eu dou primeiro sabe? A vantagem, a prioridade para isso.
This is my
Então, por
priority.
exemplo, às vezes você vai encontrar uma
So
pessoa
sometimes you will
que é
find
colega sua.
people who are
E ele também não pensa mal dela.
colleagues.
Então vocês juntam dois para abençoar a pessoa junto.
So you
Quando
may
se ama, quando
join
se
this
ele
person
pode
to help
se
the other
transformar
one.
num amparador dele. Aquilo melhora demais.
And if it's an extra
Tudo isso
physical
são os
consciousness,
vieses, as
this can
vertentes,
become the
o
helper
modo de
of the
fazer o
one
acesso.
who was complaining about you. It
Então, a
depends
pessoa,
on the
quanto
way
mais
to
perturbada ela
do
seja, do ponto de vista afetivo,
the
mais
assistance.
fechada ela
The
se
more
torna
disturbed the
dentro do
person,
processo da prioridade.
the closer, the
Ela se fecha
closed,
dentro daquilo e
more
vai se
closed
intoxicando
she
cada
is,
vez mais.
because there
Isso
is
é que é difícil.
intoxication.
Por isso que a pessoa chega num ponto
That's
ela
why
entra na
people get
paracomatose.
to a point where they
Isso é
reach
terrível, gente.
paracomatosis.
Pensem bem o que
This
é a
is
paracomatose.
terrible. Think about this.
Olha, parabéns aí, pessoal.
Adriana, congratulations. You answered perfectly the questions, very serious questions. The intrusion is not easy and you did well. I'm waiting for your other 100 entries. 100 entries, okay? Our
Obrigado.
ads,
As
please.
pontuações de hoje.
Today's punctuation, 116 signatures, 24 on-site lines, 15 online questions,
e 12 votos online.
and 12
Hoje os
votes
recados
online.
são do João Paulo sobre o curso com 5
Today the
a Rose sobre imersão
invitations
projeto
are
o Flávio sobre o
Rose,
complementário,
João
o
Paulo,
Albert sobre debate
Flávio,
Consus, CEEC,
Albert,
e a Paula sobre o
and
segundo
Paula.
festival de inverno. Solicitamos também quem tiver interesse em participar,
We ask
ajudar na
those
Feira do Livro,
who
procurar
wish to
na
participate
Silvana, na Epígrafe,
and help
na
in
lanchonete
the
da Epígrafe.
book
Agora
fair
com vocês, o Fernando
to look
e
for
Eliana sobre
Silvana.
o sorteio do Amigos da Enciclopédia.
Now with you, Eliana and Fernando, about Amigos
Boa
da
tarde a
Enciclopédia.
todos. Então nós vamos divulgar agora o
Good
resultado
afternoon. We are going
do sorteio
to
mensal do programa Amigos da Enciclopédia.
talk
Vamos
about
sortear um livro, Onde a Religião
those
Termina,
who won
uma vaga
the
no
prizes.
ECP1, patrocinado pelo IPC, e uma vaga no curso 40 Manobras, que vai ocorrer agora em setembro. Então nós temos uma lista aqui de
We had a list
401
here
amigos
of
atualizadíssimos aqui.
401
E
people,
fizemos o sorteio agora há pouco aqui
and
nos bastidores com o nosso
we chose the
auditor
people
voluntário aí, o
with
Roberto,
a
e a equipe
volunteer
lá para não tomar
audit,
muito tempo aqui.
not to take
Então o
too
resultado é
much
o seguinte:
time
quem
here.
ganhou o livro Onde a
So
Religião
the
Termina é
result
Ronaldo
was
Amade de Jundiaí.
the
Ronaldo
book
Amade de Jundiaí
Onde a
ganhou o
Religião
livro.
Termina, Where
Quem ganhou
Religion
o
Ends,
ECP1 é a
goes
Nilzabeth
to
Correia da
Amado.
Silva de Porto Alegre.
And
Então,
Nilzabeth
Nilzabeth
got
de Porto Alegre ganhou
the
o curso
subscription
ECP1, uma
to
vaga.
Advanced
E
One.
quem ganhou uma vaga no curso 40 Manobras,
In
Ana
40
Cristina Heppner de
Maneuvers
São
of
Paulo.
Energies,
Então, Ana Cristina Heppner ganhou uma
Ana
vaga no curso
Cristina
40
Heppner
Manobras.
got
E
the
no mês de
subscription.
agosto, pessoal, nós estaremos sorteando no
In
sorteio
August, we are
mensal,
going
que é 28 de
to
agosto,
make a
netbook da HP,
raffle.
zerinho, sensacional, que foi uma doação para o programa para ser
We are
sorteado
going to donate
para
a
os amigos
netbook.
ativos. Então, quem quer concorrer a esse netbook, mas
So,
principalmente
if you want
colaborar,
to
ser mantenedor da
gain
enciclopédia da
this netbook,
Conscienciologia, tem ainda
or
tempo para
mainly
renovar a sua
collaborate
assinatura ou
with
fazer
the
a sua adesão.
encyclopedia,
Obrigada.
you have time to subscribe, okay?
Boa tarde, eu vim para falar do curso
Good
Consim
afternoon.
Cobaia,
I came to
do
talk about
Conscienciograma
the
de
guinea pig
agosto,
course
promovido pela Consus, e
that's
anunciar
going to
principalmente
take
que houve uma
place in
mudança
August.
de
There was this
Ele não vai
change.
acontecer mais na
It's
sexta-feira, e sim
not
no
going
sábado,
to
no dia
happen
seguinte.
on
Ou
Friday,
seja,
but
sábado,
on
dia 6
Saturday.
de agosto, vai ser o
So,
Consim
August
Cobaia do
6th,
Conscienciograma. Isso é um aviso
we're
para os
going to
tertulianos
have
e para os
guinea pig
tertulianos que também, se quiserem se planejar ou já estiverem vindo para o CEEC.
course.
Então vai ser no sábado, a partir
So
das
those
3
who
da
are coming
tarde,
to
curso
CAEC,
promovido pela
you
Consus,
can take
com 3
advantage
campos de
of
Consim
this
Cobaia,
course promoted by
conduzidos
Conscious
pelos
with 3
conscienciômetros
fields
professores
of
da
guinea
Consus.
pig.
Então, dia 6 de agosto, o próximo Consim
August
Cobaia.
6th,
Mais informações
the
no
next
CEEC.
course.
Obrigado.
More informations.
Boa
CAEC.
tarde, eu vim convidar vocês
Good
para
afternoon. I
participar
came
do
here
curso
to
Imersão
invite you
Projeto
to
Terápica.
participate
curso
in
de
the
campo sem
project
pré-requisito que vai
Therapeutic
acontecer agora em Foz do Iguaçu, no dia
immersion,
2, 3 e
which is
4
going
de
to take
setembro.
place
O
in Foz do
EPICOM vai ser
Iguaçu
professor
in
Hernande
September.
Leite.
The
E
epicenter
para
is going
mais
to be
informações,
Professor
favor ligar
Hernande
para o
Leite, and
OIC
for further
3025
information, just call
1404.
OIC.
Bem, gostaria de comunicar que ainda
I
há
would like
vaga,
to
né,
tell
para o
to
curso
say that
complementar.
we
O
have
curso vai ocorrer agora
places
no
for
mês de
the
agosto,
complementarium.
nos dias 26,
It's
27 e
going to
28.
take place
O
in
tema do
25,
complementário é
26, and
higiene
27
consciencial. Então, os alunos
of
que estiverem
the
interessados
August.
aí no
Those
investimento do
interested
parapsiquismo, até
in
através
investing
da
in
técnica do
parapsychism
acoplamento
through
energético, então
parapsychism
informamos que ainda há algumas
this
vagas
technique.
para o curso de
We
agosto 26, 27 e 28.
already
Então,
we
entrar em
still have
contato com o
some
CAEC
places.
para registrar aí a
So get in
sua
touch with
inscrição.
CAEC
Obrigado.
and make your registration.
Pessoal, boa tarde. Hoje,
Good
como é o
afternoon,
último
guys.
domingo do
Today
mês,
is the
então
last
o debate
Sunday of the
do
month.
CAEC, ele
So
é feito em
CAEC
parceria com a
debate
Conscius.
is going to
E todo
happen
último
with
domingo
the
do mês. E hoje o
partnership
tema é
of Conscius.
ressexograma com a
And
nossa amiga Luimara
today our
Schmidt.
theme is
Quem quiser participar
recycling
presencialmente é
gram.
aqui na sala compartilhada
Those who
2.
want to
E
come
quem quiser participar online,
will
o
be
endereço é
able
www.conscius.org.br.
to participate
Repetindo,
in
www.conscius.org.br. Não
salon.
pode esquecer o BR, senão
But
cai em
those
outro
who
lugar.
want to see it
Obrigado.
through internet can enter the
Boa
website
tarde. Eu queria hoje convidar
conscious.com.br.
vocês para a programação de hoje do
I would like
Festival
to
de
invite
Inverno.
you to the
A
Winter
gente vai ter
Festival.
a partir das 3 horas essa breve
Last day,
apresentação de
we're going
dança
to
do
have a
ventre
brief
com a professora
presentation
Aline.
with
Em seguida, a
Professor
gente vai ter a
Aline.
oficina de dança do ventre, que é uma
After
atividade
that,
que custa
we'll
R$
have
5. E
this
também, em
workshop
seguida,
about
paralelamente,
aerobic
vamos ter
dance.
uma
It
mostra de
costs
curtas,
5
que é
reals.
gratuita,
And
que
we
vai ser
have
coordenada pelo
also
professor Pedro Marcelino.
a
E vão
workshop
ser apresentações de curtas
given
premiadas
by
pelo Oscar
Pedro
e outros
Marcelino
festivais internacionais.
about
E
some
também vai ter debates sobre os
movies.
temas apresentados.
And
E à
there will
noite, como a
also be a
professora Mauro já
debate. And
falou,
just like
vai ter o
Professor
Cine Club
Paulo
especial com o
said,
filme O
we're going to
Último
have a
Romance de
special
Balzac,
Cine Club
que a professora
with the
vai estar
last
participando
romance
e
of
esclarecendo,
Balzac.
debatendo.
She will explain, she will
quem sabe, a
debate with
última chance
us,
de quem não
and
assistiu
maybe
ainda.
this is the
E
last
também queria
chance to
aproveitar
watch
para
the
agradecer a
movie.
todos
And I would like
que
to
participaram do segundo Festival de Inverno,
thank
todos os voluntários
everybody,
que tiveram
all
lá
the
ativamente,
volunteers
participando das
that helped
oficinas,
us
das
and participated
apresentações.
in the workshops,
Agradecemos
the
a todos,
presentations.
né?
We
Aceitamos sugestões
thank you
e
very
também
much,
colaboração
and
para
we
as
accept
próximas
some
atividades do
suggestion and
discernimento.
collaboration
Mais uma
for
vez,
the next
obrigada e esperamos
activities
vocês
within
lá na
discernmental.
apresentação
We
e
wait for
nas
you
próximas atividades
and the
de hoje
next
ainda.
activities.
Para amanhã teremos
For
o
tomorrow,
verbete
we're
boca,
going to have
a
the entry
especialidade
mouth.
somatologia. A autora,
Somatology,
professora
the
Mabel
author
Teles.
is Mabel
Obrigado
Teles.
pela presença de
Thank you
todos
very
e até
much.
amanhã.
See you then.